Welcome to today's masterclass. My name is Lisa Richter, and I will be your host today. For those of you who are unfamiliar with CSIA, we are a global nonprofit trade association with over 500 member companies in 35 countries. To highlight a few of CSIA's many member benefits, the CSIA Best Practices Manual guides control system integration companies in the setup and running of a solid company. These BPs reflect the knowledge gained by SIs over the years and shared freely. Any SI company will benefit from deploying the BPs, but gaining the CSIA certification is a confirmation by a third party that you have deployed them correctly. Maintaining a valid certification ensures that your company stays on a path of continuous improvement. For partner members, CSIA offers an ecosystem to grow their SI programs, understand their customers' pain points, monitor industry trends, and share their thought leadership. A trusted resource of qualified integrators and suppliers, the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange helps SIs, industry suppliers, and manufacturers connect and do business. That makes the exchange a first-stop shop where end users can compare integrators, determine which products to use, and have questions answered by specialists in the field. For SIs and partners, it provides a platform to increase your digital presence, support your content and SEO marketing efforts, position your company and C-suite as thought leaders, showcase your expertise, and nurture prospects by providing a trusted, credible source for information about your company and its products. Finally, a reminder that in 2021, you will have increased access to knowledge sharing, community building, and networking throughout the year when you join or renew your CSIA membership. CSIA is committed to delivering extremely relevant content to system integrators while providing partner members access to a highly engaged audience. To that end, CSIA will deliver weekly virtual events on a broad range of topics and experiences, all of which are open to sponsorships. For more information about CSIA membership, virtual events, and sponsored and advertising opportunities, contact us at info@staff.controls.org. At this time, I would like to introduce today's speaker, John Dyke.
Thank you, Lisa. Let me share my screen here. If you can confirm that you're able to see my screen. Thank you. Well, it's an honor to be with you, Lisa, the rest of the CSIA team, and the folks on the webcast today. Really appreciate the opportunity to share with you our vision as the Smart Manufacturing Institute here, and very specifically what the systems integration community here in the US and really broadly and around the world can do to engage more effectively in this fourth industrial revolution. What I want to talk about this morning is a frank and honest perspective that's essentially based on the idea that we spent 30 or 40 years as an ecosystem working in manufacturing operations, working in this manufacturing IT space as integrators and vendors, and we've evolved to a specific way of doing things that is actually getting in the way of us seeing the value realization for the fourth industrial revolution. And so let me begin by walking through briefly who we are as CESMII, who I am, and what our opportunity looks like for the systems integrator community around the world. We are a unique type of entity. We're a federally funded consortia bringing together the best minds of this industry to drive a greater value for manufacturing in the US, to create a more competitive manufacturing environment for the US. And from our perspective, that means, as we've called out the stakeholders here at CESMII on the right-hand bottom corner, we're engaging aggressively with the manufacturers in this space, the systems integrators, the software vendors, machine builders, and of course, academia and labs where appropriate. We believe that the challenges and the opportunities in manufacturing are ecosystem level challenges and opportunities, and we are bringing this ecosystem together to address some of these significant issues going forward. We have about $140 million from the federal government, our agency being the Department of Energy, to identify innovations and necessary technologies and fund the creation of those innovations and technologies and the deployment of them across the industry here in the US. And so what I'll do over the next 30 or so minutes, together with one of our partner systems integrators, PC Romano from Avid Solutions, is share a little bit with you about, again, the challenges we see and how CESMII is rallying the best of this ecosystem, that, like I said, the manufacturers, the SIs, the vendors, machine builders, academia, to truly address the challenges that will create a more effective and a more competitive manufacturing base here in the US. At a very high level, our goal over the course of our life cycle is to accelerate the democratization of smart manufacturing. Today, smart manufacturing is the domain of the Fortune 500, maybe the Fortune 1000, at least for the most part. But even they would say, and agree wholeheartedly, they do say that smart manufacturing is too costly and too complex, prevents them from deploying their solutions in all but the largest of their plants. And in many cases, small and medium plants, even within these large Fortune 500 enterprises, get left behind. And again, that comes back down to some of the complexities I alluded to before, the reality that the way of doing things over the past 2 to 3 decades has established a level of complexity that we absolutely need to address going forward. So democratization is to reduce, from our perspective, is about reducing cost and complexity. It's about identifying and bringing to market the best technologies, the best knowledge, and a better way to collaborate and innovate as an ecosystem, as opposed to everybody kind of going it alone and sticking to the very proprietary approaches that we're seeing today. Just a brief sort of acknowledgement of what's happened over the course of the third industrial revolution. We're here to acknowledge that innovation has been a hallmark of this ecosystem for the last 2 centuries at least. But specifically in the third industrial revolution, we spent the first 2 decades building islands of automation. We spent the next 2 decades building islands of information. And unfortunately, we spent the last decade building islands of innovation, great technology, great thought leadership, great domain experts applying themselves to new problems with old problems with new technologies, but really struggling to scale up. In fact, if you looked at the latest McKinsey reports and other analysts, you would see what I see, which is that somewhere between 70 and 80% of all smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, digital transformation projects are either failing or not succeeding. And a big part of that is that they're fundamentally not able to scale. All of the effort required to build that proof of concept ends up for a success at that proof of concept level, but cost and complexity prevents that system from scaling up. So, excuse me, our efforts here at CESMII are focused on truly understanding the details of those constraints and creating a more effective environment for each of us in this ecosystem, conducive to the democratization and the further accelerated deployment velocity for smart manufacturing systems. So what has changed in the last 2 or 3 decades as we look forward to the next decade? Business outcomes haven't. The reality is that businesses are still looking to increase quality, throughput, yield, compliance, safety, and focusing on the decreasing cost, complexity, time to value, and risk. And yet, for the last 5, 7, 8, 9 years, Industry 4.0 digital transformation has been all about new value creation to the tune of trillions of dollars. As I've pointed out, this isn't happening. Why it's not happening is one of the most important questions I think we need to ask and answer, and not just in a sort of high level academic sort of way, but in the depths of the cultures and the technologies and understanding how we got where we got, so we can ensure that the future looks a little different. This happens to be one of the most mature manufacturing companies in the US. You would all recognize the brand. This is their set of manufacturing IT systems in that sort of level 3 space that make up their critical manufacturing systems for almost 70 of their plants. Every single one of these is a system either purchased from a vendor, like the vendors we all work with day to day, or built as a homegrown solution because the vendor ecosystem didn't have these capabilities. Every one of these systems has its own set of data models, information models, data ingestion, data stores. Every one has its own user experience. And yet, despite this massive investment in manufacturing IT, this enterprise in every plant spends about 40 people hours in every shift manually extracting data from those systems, putting them into Excel, showing them off in Power BI, printing off Power BI reports, and doing a shift handoff from one shift to the next for production, for maintenance, for quality. And this, as I said, is a Fortune 10 manufacturing company with one of the most mature manufacturing IT groups I'm aware of. So you might look at that and say, well, that's kind of the state of the industry before, but what about looking forward to Industry 4.0? Well, the reality is there's been some great new technologies like industrial IoT, like AI, machine learning, augmented reality, but we're still producing solutions in the same old way. The stovepipes that we've built over the last 30 years, the siloed applications that have zero interoperability with each other at the data level or at the application level, the complexity of sustaining and maintaining these systems over their life cycle, virtually zero standardization, zero interoperability from the legacy applications to even these new technologies. And so all we're doing is propagating the same complexities, the same characteristics and behaviors that we have developed collectively over the last 2 to 3 decades. And yet, we all believe the future, and I believe this as well, believe that the future hangs on this notion of innovation at scale, creating citizen technologists that can produce apps and use technology to their digitization to their benefits, whether you're an operator, maintenance tech, an engineer, regardless of who you are on the shop floor. Satya Nadella said a year and a half ago, 500 million apps are going to be created in the next 5 years. And we estimate that about 100 million of those are going to be in manufacturing somewhere. So the question isn't really about how can we create a platform that represents all of those capabilities and sort of drive towards a vendor lock-in around one big monolithic set of capabilities. The question is truly, how can we enable this kind of innovation in a safe and secure and interoperable, sort of future-proof kind of way? The state of the industry, sort of put differently or summarized, looks from our perspective like this. 3 industrial revolutions over the course of our nation's history, each one of them generating value over time, productivity and value over time. The value creation productivity takes this shape, though, that there's significant value creation up front and it tapers off, which is where we are in the current part of our life cycle. That said, the trajectory we're on right now isn't the new trajectory of the next industrial revolution. It's a trajectory that says we're not creating value the way we anticipated. We're creating value in the same way we have up to this point. Industry 3.0 characteristics, as we've tried to articulate them here, as I've already explained, this is not the way of the future. For us to see the kind of value realization as an industry that we all expect, that you as systems integrators need to be a big part of, we have to change the way we're building applications and implementing applications. The potential for value creation is real, but we have to move beyond our current proprietary and internal ways of doing things. We have to look at the way the enterprise IT space has created value. And from our perspective, that's our biggest opportunity here as CESMII and you as systems integrators to engage in what we call smart manufacturing 2030, the hallmarks of which are what we call these smart manufacturing first principles. We don't have time to go into what these are today. You're going to be hearing a lot more about us, about these smart manufacturing first principles from us and from many of the big members that we're working with here, like Procter & Gamble, like Johnson & Johnson, like ExxonMobil, General Mills, ConAgra, Raytheon, across all industries and all sizes and shapes of manufacturing. These 7 smart manufacturing first principles, starting with interoperability and openness, are the hallmark of the future. And we have to get engaged if we're going to see, as I said, if we're going to see the sort of value creation that we anticipate. So what can CESMII do about this? How can we help you as a systems integration community drive these principles forward and be part of this process? These are the 4 areas that we want to focus on. I'm going to kind of walk through these as quickly as I can. Let me get right down to brass tacks here. When you, as a systems integrator, sit down with a vendor and either shape their strategy for smart manufacturing, factory of the future, digital transformation, or if you work with, or if you simply come in at some point in the process to take their strategic initiative and implement it, the process looks the same today as it has for the last 20, 30 years. The strategic initiative is identified. You, together with your manufacturing client, will select the best platform and or solutions. And by the way, this is a short list of some of our members here. Not all of these are members here at CESMII, but I would say about 2/3 of them are. Most of the best vendors in this space are already members here at CESMII, including great companies like Emerson and Honeywell and Inductive Automation, Microsoft, ThinkIQ, Savagent, etc. So these organizations are here as members working with us. But if you select their platforms today, for the most part, without the sort of innovation that CESMII is bringing to the table, you're going to sit down with that technology stack at a blank slate every single time. There is so little interoperability that's abstracted from that technology stack or that software product that you're sitting there, regardless of how many times you've attached your software platform to a packaging line or a paper converting machine or whatever the manufacturing vertical or asset happens to be. You start with a blank slate, building that information model, that data model every single time. As everybody knows, it's kind of a rule of thumb, 80% of your energy and time and cost is spent building that infrastructure within that software product. And by the way, having worked at Rockwell Automation and GE as a software business unit leader and a software startup called Active Plant in Detroit, I know that that's true. And I also know that there's services and the domain expertise required to take these products and build a solution is extraordinary. Most of you have standardized on 1 or 2 of the great vendors in this space because you've risked a lot and you've spent a lot of money getting to know what the secret decoder ring looks like for each of those individual platforms. And you can't afford to know the complexities and the risks of more than just a couple of these products. And as a systems integrator, you then standardize on those 1 or 2 vendors. And so that complexity is what has to be addressed going forward. That complexity is part of the value creation, but only in the sense that it's a necessary evil so that you can begin building your AI models, building your dashboards, building your OEE solutions, building whatever the quality solution is, the desired outcome for your manufacturing customer. And yet, with the ecosystem working the way it is now, they're all Industry 3.0 solutions. Those of you that understand the space recognize that the extent to which you build that information model, that data model, effectively is the extent to which your application, that the application you're building for your manufacturing client, will be a robust and compelling and effective solution for your end user. But at the end of the day, there is no solution portability. There is no information model reusability. no interoperability between your solution and others deployed in that organization, and no economies of scale. Exact hallmarks of Industry 3.0. We're saying that there is a better future. We're saying that as a not-for-profit, we're bringing the brightest minds together in the industry to say, we don't need to be in a place where every single vendor has a custom proprietary way of building context for manufacturing assets. We say that we can commoditize that layer by producing that contextualization and ingestion layer for the industry and giving it to you as an industry standard, as a de facto standard. That's what we've been focused on for the past 2.5 years. And that's what we're bringing to the marketplace now, a way to allow you and the domain experts in your company to take our profile designer, and I'll talk a little bit about what this is, and use your domain experts to build robust data models, information models, asset by asset, process by process, that are fully abstracted from any individual product stack, put them in a marketplace, our marketplace, so that others can use them at scale wherever that class of equipment is being is part of the solution, right? So this is essentially building a plug and play environment for manufacturing assets so that you don't have to sit there and start from scratch every single time. I don't have a lot of time to spend on this, but the bottom line is we're here to, as I said, create this idea called a smart, create this thing called a smart manufacturing profile, or enable you to create these smart manufacturing profiles, asset by asset, process by process. That profile consists of 3 specific sets of capabilities, one at the edge, which is the unique connectivity to the specific protocols and networks that offer up, or that data source represents in terms of communications capabilities. The piece, the layer, excuse me, the layer at the core platform that says, here is how that information will be ingested and contextualized. And then the third component is at the application interface layer, which then through a GraphQL interface allows any application layer to be abstracted from that complexity below, right? So that's the role of the profile, which is a central exhibit number 1 in terms of creating data and application interoperability and application portability, so that if you design against this idea of a profile, instead of that custom stack, that application can be reused completely anywhere else that profile finds its way into the ecosystem. Big concept, but obviously something that requires a more detailed dive if you're interested in having these conversations. What might this look like? Here I've got a simple hydraulic press. I've articulated a couple of the primary viewpoints or lenses through which data from that asset might be viewed and will be necessary to be extracted from that asset. You've got your process control engineer, your process engineer, maintenance people, quality people, production people, asset manager. These are all the different lenses that historically would reflect unique solution sets, silos on the plant floor. The idea is that this press, this asset, as an example, has a specific subset of data that is any domain expert around how that press is deployed and how the information from that press, from that asset, can be used to create value for a specific desired outcome, can articulate. In other words, what we've done here is just call out, probably at the middle of the bell curve, what kind of information that press can articulate, can provide, and something that I can then articulate as a profile for other manufacturing applications to leverage it, whether it's for asset performance, quality, predictive maintenance, event management, energy, production, MES, et cetera, simulation design for digital twins, et cetera. These are the data elements that I can extract, can articulate via a profile, and then extract as an application layer in a very systematic and predictable way. So what does that look like? Well, I have that press. I'm the domain expert that knows about presses. I want to create a profile. I go to the CESMII marketplace. I pull up this thing called a Smart Manufacturing Profile Designer, which is a web-based tool that allows you to create these profiles. I articulate those data components and create a press profile, which we then will sanction and put back into our marketplace. That press profile now becomes either freeware because you've created it as a way to generate interest in or essentially promote your capabilities in this space and advertise your capabilities in this space, or if it's a uniquely robust and significant complex profile, you can charge for it. This represents an opportunity to drive recurring revenue for the creation and the use of these profiles. Because like I said, this profile is created once, put in our marketplace, and now wherever this class of asset exists on a shop floor, anyone else can use that profile, instantiate their copy of it, and don't have to spend a second building a data model, an information model for that asset, right? So this is a key component in this notion of democratization. This is how we reduce the cost and complexity of building information systems, digital transformation systems for the marketplace. Now, any app developer, and by the way, systems integrators have more unique domain expertise in this space than most vendors do, and probably all vendors do. And so the notion that this platform now allows you as domain experts to build applications, build tools, is a significant new development for this community, for this systems integrations community. Because what this means is that as you build tools or models on top of this infrastructure, you now have IP in our marketplace that, again, can be given back to the ecosystem, the manufacturing users, or can be sold as a recurring subscription fee in our marketplace. And the key component here is that these profiles, whether they're used in the context of our specific innovation platform or in the likes accessed and used to build data models, information models within the likes of an inductive automation ignition product or an Emerson asset management solution or whoever the vendor is, we allow these profiles to be articulated, instantiated rather, and used across the board in your platforms or in our standardized innovation platform, which again is a not-for-profit, is our implementation of the specification for smart manufacturing systems. What this means is that any vendor, any app, any tool developed against this profile, as I mentioned before, can now bring true interoperability, meaning those systems can talk to each other through these profiles without having any prior knowledge, without any custom code, without any brittle, costly, custom application integration solutions to accomplish that, which is a really, really big deal. Transitioning here from technology to our learning infrastructure, smart manufacturing learning system, learning infrastructure. Again, I'm flying by at a 30,000-foot level to give you a sense of the different strategic ways that we're enabling you and the rest of the ecosystem to engage in this way. We have a significant amount of investment in this space, trying to create content for every aspect of this, all of the stakeholder groups in this ecosystem. Let me talk a little bit about who those stakeholders are. We kind of see the academic institutions, whether they're community colleges or four-year academic institutions, as being sort of the beginning of the pipeline. But and important for us to engage, but we're absolutely interested in the entire set of stakeholders, group of stakeholders, from the practitioners in the plants, the practitioners in your organizations, all the way through to the CXOs that are cost justifying and setting strategic initiatives in place in these ways so that we can create a more intelligent, a more informed ecosystem or buyer for the types of initiatives that we all want to see deployed at greater velocity. So again, I'm not going to go into this, but this is the workforce development initiative that we're building right now, that we're investing in to essentially raise the tide of knowledge so that the entire industry becomes more effective at justifying and specifying and implementing and across the entire life cycle of the implementation of these digital transformation solutions. We have a massive collection of recordings from different types of domain experts across our membership, representing sort of the sort of knowledge base that we're building out for our ecosystem here as well. So if you have a chance to check this out on our website, please take a minute and do that. One of the important pieces from our perspective too is having industry vertical representation of CESMII in ways that allow for you and the manufacturers and the vendors to have a sandbox in which to innovate and drive this entire ecosystem forward. We have this notion of a smart manufacturing innovation center, which allows us to engage you where you are by industry. We have a number of them in place right now, and I'll talk in a moment about a great example of that at North Carolina State University, together with one of our great systems integrator partners, Avid Solutions, as I alluded to before. But we're days away, as in next week, we're announcing the funding for another host of these innovation centers across the country. So we have representation across a greater set of industry verticals, including automotive and chemicals and food and beverage and pharmaceutical and semiconductor and so on and so forth. What this means is manifested, I think, in a very compelling way, even though we're early in our days here with us, North Carolina State University. They have 4 distinct manufacturing operations on campus, which is pretty unique for a lot of academic institutions. And this is the kind of institution we're looking to focus with, organizations that have existing strategic engagement with industry, that have real manufacturing assets around which you can innovate and play, and as I said, work in a sandbox together with your partners, if that's an industry you care about. In this case, they have a non-wovens institute with a real production scale non-wovens factory on campus. They have a biopharma plant on site. They have a scaled pulp and paper mill on site, and they have a significant new set of advanced manufacturing labs on site as well. And so the question is, how can we, and by the way, each one of those has its set of consortia, industry consortia there at North Carolina State. Non-wovens has a group of several dozen industry partners. Pulp and paper has, I think, 88 folks in their bio forest consortia. BTech is their biopharma consortia, which has about 43 of the nation's biggest life sciences and pharma partners, manufacturers. We are engaging these organizations with a smart manufacturing, contemporary environment that allows them to leverage this infrastructure at scale. What this means is, for every one of our innovation centers, we're layering that innovation platform, that smart manufacturing innovation platforms, and funding the creation of both the profiles for those manufacturing assets and the integration of a relevant set of vendor software solutions on that unified infrastructure. And with that said, I'd like to introduce a great friend of ours, PC Romano, a gentleman that I've come to appreciate and respect here, as a hallmark partner of ours that's taking sort of the lead role in that interface between academia and these great manufacturing assets and our view of the world, which is the smart manufacturing capabilities that our membership is bringing to the table here. So PC, if you'd comment on your role here and your perspective, I'd appreciate that.
Thanks, John. Hello, everyone, and happy St. Paddy's Day. It's great to be part of this talk. Before we talk about a little bit what we did with CESMII at NC State, I want to just talk a little bit about why CESMII's vision is so compelling to us. And there are really 3 components. Just as manufacturing evolves, system integrators need to as well. And CESMII is not just about technology and their platform, but how we'll manufacture in the future, and helping to develop the roadmap for all stakeholders, including production, operations, maintenance, and service providers like us. They stand for the enablement of standards, reusable profiles, like John said, and APIs to create maintainable and sustainable digital solutions. And we call that future-proofing operations for our clients. And like John mentioned, the democratization of data. We've got large manufacturing clients. We've also got some that aren't as big, and they don't have the sophistication or the wherewithal necessarily to do all the smart manufacturing requires. And so I think there's a real compelling vision for CESMII, and it does mean a lot to system integrators. And so as far as working with CESMII, like John said, we were fortunate to have a presence in North Carolina near one of their SMICs, their Smart Manufacturing Innovation Centers at NC State University. And so in the slide, you'll see a few of the technologies we integrated at North Carolina State, and there's more to come. But the SMIC really creates that playground for creative minds from both industry, the university, and technology companies like ourselves to come together and vet and test ideas and opportunities. And so in our case, many of the concepts from our extend and extensibility offerings were incorporated into the CESMII platform demo. And so we've got some information on our website, and I know CESMII's got a great demo video on YouTube that we can share with you as well. That'll give you a little bit more detail about what we did, what we were controlling, what we were reporting on, and how everything interfaced with each other. But finally, my recommendations to other system integrators is really understand CESMII's vision and strategy, and if it aligns with yours, then take the next step. And so this quick presentation is a good start. They've got a lot more information at their website. And then if you do choose to engage, one great way is through co-funded projects with your customers. So thanks again, and back to you, John.
Thank you, PC. It's been a privilege to work with you and your organization here. A great example of forward-looking, forward-thinking people who understand that the past way of doing things isn't the way it's always got to be looking forward. This is a quick snapshot of some of the facilities there, the services that are provided there, and this historically has been all predominantly around the actual products and the process there. What we've enabled together with Avid is exposing these capabilities in a manufacturing IT, smart manufacturing sort of setting. So now the focus is shifting to include what can industry do around using this information in these contemporary ways to create new solutions, whether it's a PhD postdoc student, an undergrad student, or whether it's one of the industry partners, Georgia Pacific International Paper, that comes in and says, how can we engage with some of the thought leaders in the space to solve these manufacturing IT problems? Last but not least, this notion of vendor-neutral collaboration framework and standards advocacy. PC commented at the very end about the fact that we fund the deployment of these capabilities or other smart manufacturing innovation. These are the 5 categories of spend. They range from kind of small, agile project grants of $100,000 to, which are these innovation projects, to larger, longer-term research projects that are up to $2 million and 18 months in duration. All of these are focused on creating the capacity, creating the capabilities that will allow us to democratize smart manufacturing, all within the context of that vision. What does funding look like? I'm going to share with you probably the most compelling and the most effective mechanism we have for engaging you and your manufacturing partners in this. But if I look at this sort of piece on the right, on the left-hand side, you saw this before. These are the desired outcomes. These are the manufacturing outcomes that your manufacturing partners are shooting for, are striving for today, like they were 10 and 20 years ago. That remains unchanged. What does smart manufacturing mean? Well, we've got a lot of content about definitions and descriptions, but virtually everything that happens here through our funding and with our focus on digital transformation is sort of encapsulated here in this wheel, right? So the use case is ultimately the most important piece. What is the desired outcome we need to accomplish? And how can we accomplish it in ways that are consistent with the fourth industrial revolution, not the legacy and the proprietary and the old ways that we've been doing things for the last 3 or 4 decades. So as the mechanism here then looks like this. We've just completed our second round of what we call smart manufacturing innovation projects, where we come out with an RFP that says, bring your ideas, and your ideas sort of fit into that wheel that I shared before. A manufacturer has to be part of the team. We're strongly recommending a systems integrator as part of the team. Typically, there's a vendor of some sort, either a vendor that's already here or a vendor that you think needs to be here. We then, if you're selected for one of these $100,000 grants, we then we'll go through our selection process. We'll provide you with a $100,000 grant, up to $100,000, and most of these are somehow magically end up being close to $100,000. You form this project team. You have 3 to 6 months to deploy your idea using this idea of a profile designer to build profiles, to build that application, whatever that use case defines, and ultimately solve a problem for a manufacturer. We fundamentally assume that your use case, or anticipate that your use case, will fit into that broad set of use cases I framed up before, but it's going to be sort of in one of these 3 categories here. We call this out as sort of energy consumption or energy productivity, the broad notion of efficiency, productivity, and performance, and then some of the more future-looking innovation ideas around predictive maintenance, predictive performance, asset monitoring, and asset management, which I guess are more classic applications. So if you have a manufacturer that's interested in this area, but perhaps through COVID or lack of access to capital, perhaps $100,000 would represent a great catalyst to put this above the line and move this project forward. This represents a great opportunity for you to become part of this ecosystem, apply for one of these grants, and drive the industry forward in these ways. By the way, the profiles that are produced as part of these projects and the applications now become opportunities for you to drive recurring revenue as well. Because frankly, what the outcome will be, a portable application, will be a profile or 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 that can be reused. And again, that's the beauty of this entire model. It's interoperability and openness at its best. It's allowing your domain expertise to be reused and deployed by anyone else that has that kind of manufacturing asset in their manufacturing operations. Approaching the end here, just a couple of quick slides on how we're engaging with this marketplace. We have some significant and strategic partnerships. Obviously, CSIA is one of those partners. We're working closely with the OPC Foundation to evolve the part 5 of their specification around information models. I have a slide on that in a moment. We're going to be announcing next month at Hanover Fair, obviously now a virtual event again this year. We'll be announcing a significant strategic bilateral partnership, transatlantic partnership with Germany and the official group out of Germany that is responsible for their Industry 4.0 strategy as a nation. It's called the Platform Industry 4.0. We're absolutely excited about that because that first of all allows us together with the Germans to collectively promote this idea of profiles, and in their world, this notion of an asset administration shell, which is kind of a very powerful complement to profiles, but more on the digital twin design side. And these two put together put a very powerful set of capabilities together for a harmonized global manufacturing environment. The Industrial Internet Consortium, I spoke last week at one of their events. at our sort of unveiling of our partnership with them. MESA, the Society of Manufacturing Engineering. Microsoft is a significant partner of ours. Most of the implementations of our platform are deployed in Azure. And so Microsoft is a significant provider of services for this, for our partnership and for our project deployments. We have a unique opportunity here at CESMII to be sort of a center of gravity for smart manufacturing for federal and state policymakers. I've been at Capitol Hill twice in 2020, doing congressional hearings, congressional briefings on smart manufacturing, one on the democratization of smart manufacturing, and one later last summer, on reimagining or rethinking the US supply chain in the wake of COVID. What's exciting to me is that for the first time in my career, federal policymakers are actually really excited and interested in smart manufacturing. This is a first, and again, it's a privilege to represent our members, our manufacturing ecosystem to them in this way. An example of that also is how we're driving the voice of what becomes law. We had a great opportunity last summer through COVID to be part of the writing of a paper called the Manufacturing Guard, kind of looking forward to helping the US manufacturing system more effectively through the next pandemic or the next major disruption. We were able to approach a bipartisan set of senators to share with them this paper and how important these ideas are. It took them less than a month to produce a bill that was read on the Senate floor, on the House floor on July 29th, and has a high probability of becoming law this spring, which will again provide funding for us to drive these important initiatives forward. I mentioned the OPC Foundation just very briefly. We're leading a joint working group with the OPC Foundation, headed up by Microsoft, actually, on this notion of how these profiles come to market. This develops the standard specification for how you search for, how you access these types of profiles, the smart manufacturing profiles, and then obviously make them available in the marketplace in a standardized way. So we're truly excited to work with the OPC Foundation in this really, really important way. My final slide here before we open up the floor to more questions, if you have any questions, is just to say we believe, a very, very compelling value proposition for you here at CESMII. We fund projects. We make all of these technologies, including all of our vendor partners like Inductive Automation, like Emerson, like AspenTech, like Honeywell, Matricon. We make these technologies available to you for free for pilots, for proof of concepts, provisioned on top of our platform, and specifically for the purpose of furthering these objectives here around smart manufacturing. We represent an opportunity for you uniquely as domain experts in this field to productize your knowledge, your domain expertise. This platform represents standardized infrastructure so that you don't have to build that complex platform around which to productize your knowledge. We now allow you, this is perhaps the single most important thing for you as systems integrators. Your business model is built largely on non-recurring engineering, but so many of you have great ideas that have turned into products, could be monetized. We represent this platform that enables you to monetize that domain expertise without worrying about the enormous cost and complexity of that technology stack. So building an application on this stack as a de facto standard from a not-for-profit industry that scales up and scales down, again, represents huge value for an entire new innovation and development innovation environment, in the same way that iOS and Android did for the device marketplace a decade ago, dramatically lowering the bar of what it takes to create apps and build innovations and make them available in the marketplace. If you're here at the table, you can help shape our thinking and shape the US's smart manufacturing strategy. We have affinity groups that are growing rapidly in terms of the scope and supply, bringing this manufacturing ecosystem together by industry around these smart manufacturing innovation centers. Obviously, the SMICs themselves, and last but not least, we have a brand new, rapidly growing member portal, which represents a very compelling knowledge base for the training, for the content, the material that is going to help each of us become more effective on this journey. So with that said, thank you again for your time today. Thank you for the privilege of sharing this with you. And certainly if there are any questions, I would love to have this conversation with you either here on this webcast or offline at some point of your convenience.
So this is Lisa. I'm popping up out of my trash can. I don't have the ability to enter a Q&A because I'm a panelist, but I'm curious. I keep hearing about the COVID is just like really accelerated the digital transformation. From your perspective, have you witnessed that as well? And that's just really been a good catalyst. Not that COVID's a good thing, but you know that in a way it's given you a nudge and helped some things along.
Yeah. So the short answer is no doubt, with 100% confidence. And here's how I can say that with that level of conviction. One of my board members is Simon Jacobson from Gartner, VP of Manufacturing Research at Gartner. They surveyed well over 500 manufacturing executives probably 3 or 4 months ago, exactly on this topic, and found some shocking things, some totally unprecedented things. Historically, when asked about the strategic importance of smart manufacturing, digital transformation, and how aggressive they are as manufacturing executives to drive these initiatives forward, the answer has historically been somewhere between 30 and 40%. Well, late last fall, the answer is the surprising response was 87% of manufacturing executives believe that digital transformation is the most important thing they can do to create a more competitive operations for their enterprise. And so the statistics back up what I think most of us have been saying intuitively and perceiving and sharing, but that's a remarkable statistic and one that I think bodes well for us collectively here on this call and in this ecosystem. The notion of a connected worker, right? The notion that a safer work environment with more equipped personnel on the shop floor, digitally equipped personnel on the shop floor, is absolutely a key part of that. The notion that remote work and remote support, asset management, is a key part of that. So these initiatives all involve digital transformation, the digitization of knowledge, of infrastructure, of information that's going to allow them to accomplish what they have set out from a strategic initiative standpoint.
So we're having some things come in on the chat. This one I don't really understand, so I'm just going to read it, and then hopefully you'll understand what it says. It says, for John Dyke, inclusion of www.ni.com ?
ni.com.
I'm assuming National Instruments, and maybe they're asking if National Instruments is involved, would be my guess.
So National Instruments is on my short list of organizations that we need to engage here at CESMII that we're not yet engaged with. So I would welcome the chance to engage with them. In fact, at one of our leadership team calls, I made that clear probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that that's a strategic target for us, both because of who they are as an organization, but also in terms of their presence in the sort of academic knowledge sort of side of things as well. So very much interested in that conversation.
Well, we have another question that came through on the chat. I don't know why. I think maybe because he couldn't put it in the Q&A. Can you talk about the cost of membership? Is it expensive?
Great question. So for most of the systems integration community, it's a $4,000 a year membership. If you're a large corporation, and I know there's not a lot of large systems integrator enterprises, the cost goes up. So our large manufacturers pay $25,000 to $50,000 a year, but small companies that meet sort of our threshold of what small means is $4,000 a year. So that's the cost to be a member here at CESMII. And we have all those details on our website, so feel free to check that out. The specifics of what that means, but that's the short answer to the question.
So I think, Robert Hoffman, I saw you raised your hand. Did you have something you wanted to ask or contribute? Okay, here's a question that came in. How would you differentiate Industrial 3.0 to Industrial 4.0 when it comes to operations?
Yeah, so the reality is, because of your work as an ecosystem, the problems that you've been solving for the last 30 years, as I articulated, are virtually the same ones that need to be solved tomorrow. So what an operator sees in the future will, in theory, look much like it does today, with the exception that things like augmented reality and predictive modeling, predictive maintenance will provide better inputs to an operator to make better decisions. So that's certainly an evolution of the kinds of ways that technologies will manifest themselves in front of an operator. The most significant piece is the infrastructure that empowers or enables that worker to do what they do. For the organization that I shared the sort of manufacturing systems taxonomy for, that operator today has to engage with typically 2 to 5 different vendors in their day-to-day job. And each of those look different because they're made by different companies, and each of them take training on a different set of systems. Looking forward, even that user experience could be harmonized in a more standardized approach to the infrastructure that we're building here. So the outcomes are the same. The cost and complexity to get there will be dramatically reduced, and technology will enable better decision support. But at the end of the day, we hope that those operators, because of these types of tools being more ubiquitous and more available, will be able to be engaged in that decision-making process. We talk a lot about citizen technologists. How can I democratize information so that I, as an operator on the shop floor, can customize what I see, because it's what I think is going to help me and what's going to make me a more effective operator, perhaps not just to myself, but in the process that I'm a part of with my peers. So anyway, that's a very perhaps philosophical answer, but there's a sort of an interesting blend between the desired outcome being the same and exciting new technologies that, if we can deploy them at scale, via reduced cost and complexity, will have a major impact on an operator, turning him or her into a citizen technologist and part of the solution, not just part of the sort of day-to-day rote operation of that process.
So Robert Hoffman said in the chat that he's going to contact you separately, because I think he's going to hook you up with NI. So that might be a good outcome from today's session. And finally, I kind of wanted to talk to PC.
Thank you, Robert Hoffman.
PC, if you want to put your mic on, I have a question for you. I'm curious how your staff is responding to your involvement in this. Like, are they like super jacked that they get to like experiment with all this fun, cool technology? And, what are the benefits you're seeing from an internal perspective?
Yeah, well, we're a bunch of engineers, so technology turns us on. But definitely, we've seen some of our younger folks especially get really excited about participating in the work at NC State and with CESMII. And they bring a new perspective on these things. They grew up in a digital environment, and so they think of the things that old folks like us don't think about. So I think especially for the young folks, it's been really engaging.
Yeah, I would guess if you want to take it one step further, it could almost be seen as a recruitment tool, right? Like, hey, look at us, we're doing cool things just like those big guys, Microsoft and what have you, give you a little, because I hear that a lot, like trying to get people, get the talent on board is super challenging.
Democratizing the cool.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think, Sandra, at this point, we're getting to the top of the hour. If you want to kick John off and put up our last few slides, that would be awesome. I'll turn my camera on too, so you can see my smiley face again one last time before we go. I just have some closing comments. So on behalf of CSIA, I would like to thank John and PC for this informative discussion. And finally, thank you to all of you who attended this event today. We hope you found this virtual event informational. We'd also like to remind you that a recording will be available for viewing within a few days. Please visit the CSI website to get the recording. We will also send out an email that has a link to the recording in the next couple of days. And be sure to bookmark that CSI events calendar so you don't miss any upcoming events. Finally, Sandra, there you go. This is the contact information for me and Jose. If you have nice things to say, contact me. If you have complaints, contact Jose. This concludes our program today. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.